Hello. I am starting baking school today. I'm a decent chef, but I know nothing about baking, and my mom is an awesome baker, so we're hoping to bring some weekly episodes of entry-level baking for starters and go from there. So what are we making today?
So I thought we'd start with quick breads because quick breads, one, are a great holiday bread. You'll start receiving them from your neighbors, and it's important to be able to reciprocate with your own kinds of treats. And the beauty of quick breads is that you can make whatever variation you want as long as your dry and your wet ratios are correct. The options are limitless. So we'll start today with just the basic quick bread recipe and then do a couple of variations, just some quick ideas for you. But once you've perfected this side of things, then the sky is the limit.
All right. So let's just jump right into it.
Great. Okay. So a basic quick bread recipe consists of 4 dry ingredients and 4 wet ingredients. And the ingredients can vary, but for the basic recipe, we have flour, baking soda, salt, and baking powder for our dry ingredients. And then butter, which is the fat, buttermilk, an egg, and sugar.
So in our first bowl, we are doing 2 cups of flour. We are doing half a teaspoon of salt. We are doing half a teaspoon of baking soda and 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And in our wet, for starters, we are whisking together our buttermilk and our egg. We will add our butter. I'm using this. Get this in there. And our sugar.
Okay, so after putting your ingredients in each of the bowls and whisking them to incorporate them together, you're going to add the dry ingredients to the wet, as opposed to the wet ingredients to the dry. When you do it the opposite way, you end up with clumps in your batter, and you risk the chance of overmixing. So you want to make sure that you're putting your dry into your wet all at once.
And not whisking, but almost folding.
Folding so that your flour is just moistened. So again, just to recap, make sure that you're adding your dry ingredients to your wet and not your wet ingredients into your dry. It will only take just a few turns of the bowl to see that you have mixed everything together. The other thing to remember in this case is that your leavening agents, your baking soda and your baking powder, are activating each other, and that's what will help your batter rise. You'll see that there's no dry flour, no clumps, everything's mixed together. The important part is to never let your batter sit. You want to immediately get it into the pan so that your leavening agents don't deactivate. We're back at square one with our wet and our dry ingredients all blended together, and we're gonna work on our savory loaf now. The only difference with our wet ingredients is that instead of using butter, we used olive oil because olive oil is a fabulous addition to Parmesan cheese, herbs, sauteed onions, and sun-dried tomatoes. So what we want to do is we want to add them to the dry ingredients first. And the reason for doing that is because when you add them to the dry ingredients and you mix them around, they get coated with flour a little bit and they don't clump. Whereas if you put them in the wet ingredients, they'll just all stick together and stay together. This is just a little bit of rosemary, some chopped basil that I have, and then I sauteed some onions simply in a tablespoon of butter on low in the pan for about 20 minutes. So we'll put those in, and as we mix, they'll get coated with flour and come apart. And then last is about a 1/4 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese. These ingredients are all pretty much on the dry side and won't affect the consistency of your quick bread dough very much. After you've got them incorporated really well, again, you're going to add your dry ingredients to your wet. Mix only slightly, about 20 or 30 turns of your bowl. And then put them in the pan quickly so that you don't lose the effect of your leavening agents, which are your baking powder and your baking soda.
All right, so our loaf is going in the oven at 350 for about 45 minutes. All right, let's start with the plain one.
Okay, let's take a taste.
Just with the straightforward.
All right.
Crust is good. I think it could be a little saltier, but it would be perfect in a chili.
Oh my gosh, to dip it in chili
soup.
or soups. Yeah.
Crumbly like a cornbread
or
like a
biscuit
cornbread,
or something, but not dry at all.
Yeah.
At all. Okay, now we're going to try the and immediately we notice that this is more moist.
Yeah.
Less crumbly.
But immediately you get like the aromatics of the rosemary, of the basil, the Parmesan.
The sun-dried tomatoes and the onions make it sweet.
That would
delicious.
It would be perfect with like any sort of pasta dish. Soak up the rest of that sauce in there.
And now for dessert.
In dessert, the chocolate zucchini. Right?
Yes. And the difference with this recipe is that there was more fat used, so oil and butter, as opposed to just butter in the first two. and 1 more egg to make it more cakey-like.
Yeah, this is almost like a brownie consistency, cakey brownie, not a gooey brownie.
Not too sweet, which it would be like cloyingly sweet,
but also not too like bitter from the chocolate.
Brown sugar and granulated sugar combination. All in all, I'm excited.
Obviously, cocoa powder instead of all of the flour. You substitute some cocoa powder. Yeah, super tasty.
I think it turned out great.
I do too.
Exciting.
I do too. So there it is, our first baking class done. We made a regular loaf. We made the rosemary, sun-dried tomato, sauteed onion, Parmesan loaf. And then off camera we did a zucchini chocolate. Forgot the walnuts? Did the walnuts make it in? Forgot the walnuts for the
zucchini chocolate chip.
For the quick bread. Yeah, hopefully you learned something along the way. These are pretty straightforward. 4 wet ingredients, 4 dry ingredients, and you can put any twist on them that you'd like. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward.
Had a lot of fun. Margot had fun with us.
Yep.
So we hope you enjoy trying out your quick bread recipe, and would love to see pictures of what you find to create.
Let us know in the comments the different things you do with your quick breads. This is our first YouTube video. We're going to be doing more every week, baking every week, a new recipe, trying to make it accessible so everybody can learn along the way.
And we'll see you next time.
Subscribe and share it around, and we'll see you next week.